Good morning. I take it you can hear me. We got the sound working. All right. It's nice to see you all joining us here on this December morning, getting close to the holidays. This morning, it's my great pleasure to introduce my old Dharma buddy, GD, or Gentle Dragon, which is the Reverend Onryu Kennedy. And I got a little information here about her. She was ordained by her teacher, Byakuren Roshi Judith Ragir, in November of 2012 in Katagiri Roshi's lineage. And Onryu attended the fall practice period at Tassajara in 2017. She received transmission from Byakuren Roshi Judith Ragir in October of 2018. And Onryu received priest ordination from Reverend Eido Phoebe Reinhart in August of 2018 in Uchiyama Roshi's lineage. The spring of 2019, she attended the practice period at Toshoji International Zen Center in Japan. And in the spring of 2020, she was the shuso for the practice period at Toshoji. She received transmission in February of this year from Reverend Eido Phoebe Reinhart, and she has permission to participate in zuise and is waiting for travel restrictions in Japan to lift. Currently, she is attending a year-long Engaged Buddhism at Upaya Zen Center. Onryu is committed to engaging the practice of Buddhism in relationship to social justice. Well, more power to you. All right. Thank you so much. Onryu, you can unmute yourself and lead us on.
Thank you. It's great to see everyone. And good morning. I have a head cold. So I'm hoping that it doesn't get in the way of what it is I'd like to share with you today. I just really want to thank Hokyoji and the community. And that community includes all beings, not just the two-legged, the four-legged, the wings, the grasses, the bugs, the dust. I appreciate all beings, and I appreciate the invitation to speak, have a conversation with you today. And I'm deeply honored and grateful for this opportunity. I'd like to begin by offering homage to all Buddhas and ancestors, and homage to all our teachers, and homage to all our friends and relatives and all beings who really help to nourish and sustain us in ways that are known and unknown. And I also want to acknowledge that where I sit right now in Minneapolis, I am on Dakota homeland near the Bdote. And the Bdote is the confluence of the Mississippi and the Minnesota River, which holds the creation story of the Dakota people. And as my friend Hartman touched on, it's December, and December has a lot of meaning for different nations, different religions, different communities. And I would like to acknowledge that we're heading into the solstice. And I'm looking forward to it. It's an auspicious time. And I would also like to acknowledge that as we head into the end of December, it's also a time of both celebration and mourning. And I would like to bring forward that on December 26th in 1862, in the state of Minnesota, in the city of Mankato, there was the largest hanging of 38 Dakota men. And that was the day after Christmas. So I think it's important because as was brought forward, I am committed to social justice issues, and I have been working with Indigenous peoples and nations, and I've learned a lot. And part of what I learn is I need to acknowledge what has not been acknowledged in the past. And not in a way that creates trauma or activates, in a way that acknowledges the remembering events that have happened in the past. And as bodhisattvas, we are committed to unraveling our ancient twisted karma to our capacity. And this is one of my practices. And going forward, I'm happy to see that there were brave bodhisattvas willing to have this conversation with me, because the title of my talk is Beyond Death, Living in This Moment. And I give that weight, and I give your presence weight. And this talk comes out of my study of opening the hand of thought with Uchiyama Roshi, and listening to Okamura Roshi's talks, and participating in his Genzo way, and also out of my I think you might call it activism. My activism work with Line 3 and working with Indigenous leadership, Indigenous women's leadership. I'd like to share how that is not separate from my investigation and study with Uchiyama Roshi and Okamura Roshi. As Pema Children says, we start where we are. This is really important, to have a sense of what our capacities are in this moment, knowing that we can grow those capacities. And sometimes conditions will limit what we're able to do, because there is old age, sickness, death that are an ongoing processes that influence our capacity. So today I would just, as I'm talking, I want to talk just for a half hour and open it up to your views, what you hear, how this is, does it have relevance to your life, to your practice, what I'm talking about? what's your opinions? Because I feel that this is a conversation. And some of the questions that I thought would be helpful or not are, what am I doing in the dailiness of life in practice of service to all beings? How do I practice love and compassion daily? Is it possible for me to include the challenge of love to those who have harmed me? How am I both the oppressed and the oppressor? Or anything else that may emerge for you? And I want to say there's no escaping death. And it seems obvious. I mean, even saying it is like simplistic, right? I mean, for sure. But there's, I think that in our minds sometimes, or at least I have a recent experience I will share later. I am struck with how it's really kind of easy, particularly in our culture, to deny death, to deny its existence. Though I think it's getting harder given the current conditions of illness that is around us. I still think that if there's a porthole that we can go through to escape death, we'll do that. Or at least that's my experience. If I can find any porthole, any window, I'll go through it. So there's no escaping it. I've learned that recently at a very deep level. In the Heart Sutra, it says, with nothing to attain, a bodhisattva relies on prajna paramita, and thus the mind is without hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Far beyond all inverted views, one realizes nirvana. To experience this no fear means to untangle the historical karmic consciousness and to acknowledge death in order to live. To understand both death and love give meaning to life. I mean, that's mind-blowing to me, to really hold that, to hold the paradox or what seems diametrically opposed to each other, death and love. It is going through our conscious karma in the direction of our vow to free ourselves and all beings and not be pulled by habit, energy, and egocentricity. Through our bodhisattva vow, though our bodhisattva vow is unattainable, we aspire to move in that direction. That is really important teaching for me. Is we vow to free all beings. And we chant that. And yet it's an unattainable vow. And for many of us, that's our kind of our North Star. That's the direction we want to be moving into, is our vow, living our vow. And yet we live in a culture that is wanting us to show progress. to have goals. So there's this tension between our spiritual practice and the culture in which we live, and the relativity, because to deny the relativity is crazy. That's been my experience. If you have another experience, please let me know. But we live in the relative world. And the Buddha said one of his first truths was that life is suffering. And recently, I was listening to Upaya Roshi, and I want to read something first from Uchiyama Roshi in Opening the Hand of Thought. It's on page 91, if any of you have the book. He's talking about progress, that we make continuous scientific progress resulting in greater human comfort is fine, and that we possess the dissatisfaction that serves as the force for developing and progressing is also certainly a wonderful thing. The problem is that dissatisfaction with the present easily leads us to impatience for our desires to be fulfilled, and that engenders a behavior of daggers drawn towards any and all competitors, resulting in the total loss of peace in our lives. And I think for me, that's been another teaching this year, is this dissatisfaction. And it's something that I also learned when I was at Toshoji as shuso. What was important for me is not to draw daggers at people who, at Toshoji, who I thought were hurting me or trying to harm me, or whatever ego hurt I was experiencing. It was not to draw daggers and try to kill them. It was really to step back, to step away from my egocentricity and realize that, is this what I want to do? Do I want to kill this person? I mean, not kill them, but kill them in the sense of their spirit. Or do I want to uplift them? The hardest thing, uplift them. And I made a decision as a shuso over and over and over. I want to uplift them. I don't want to create karma for myself and for others that is harmful. And I have an opportunity here, a precious opportunity as shuso in a international sangha to really practice pulling back my ego and uplifting all beings. And there is peace in that. There was peace for me in practicing in that way. So Buddha talks about suffering, and Uchiyama Roshi talks about suffering as well. And both positive and negative experiencing creates suffering. because everything is impermanent in suffering. Positive experiences will go. I mean, when I was in shuso, as shuso, I was on a roll. I felt I was on top of the world. But when I came back here, it was a whole different gig. It ends. They both end. The positive experience, the positive feelings, and the negative experiences both end. They cease. Even the high states, spiritual states, cease. They're just states. He talks about imperfection, impermanence, emptiness, insubstantiality, all dukkha, because they'll cease. And nirvana not in the sense of it's the escape hatch from death. Nirvana in the sense that it's beyond desire. It's beyond our egocentricity. Is it possible to find nirvana in any condition? Is it possible to, by going beyond satisfying our desires and seeing things as they are and working with these conditions, that there's peace and ease? Yeah, I'm saying to you, yes, I have direct experience. And what does that look like? Recently, a beloved indigenous elder died. I had a conversation with her on Sunday. I said, it was like I was visiting with her. For 2 hours, it was like I was visiting with her on the phone. And I said, I'll call you on Wednesday and we'll figure out when I can come and see you. And she was like, yes, it's great. I got a call, or I said, I'll call you on Thursday. And I got a call on Wednesday from her son. She'd passed. I was like, you're kidding me. We were supposed to have a conversation tomorrow. I mean, I was like, I've been practicing for 30 years, right? Letting go. And my immediate response was like, no, she can't die. We were supposed to have a conversation. No. The time is now. The time is now is to tell people you love them. I mean, we know this. But right now, it's really up for me. There are people who and you may understand this. There are people who you meet and you immediately resonate with them. You don't know why, you just do. That was my beloved indigenous elder. And 3 years later, boom, she's left the planet. And bearing witness to her death. It was a traditional indigenous wake and funeral. I've never experienced anything like it. Facing her death was facing my death. What an act of compassion. if I could not be in the moment with her deathing process and leaving this planet, I would have missed out on great love, on the great gifts that I had been given by her. And my practice helped me. My practice helped me to stay in these conditions that seemed at times beyond what I could possibly have the capacity for. But when I remembered that I love her, she's in me. She's in another dimension, she's in another form, but she'll always be in me. I mean, to me, that's nirvana. It's not some esoteric concept. It's something that we can experience in the here and now. On the day of her passing, that Wednesday, I was sitting where I'm sitting right now. No, that's a lie. Because I got up because I was walking around and I have windows, you can't see them, but they've kind of faced the west. And I looked over at the sky, the west sky. The west sky was on fire. I had never seen a sunset like that before, or at least that one I can remember, right? I mean, when you're in this altered state of mind of grieving, you see things that you don't usually see, but it was such a beautiful sunset. And I felt that it was a sign, right? It's gonna be okay. There's still beauty. There's still beauty where there's death. They're both existing together. I'm like, wow. You can't make this shit up. It's real. I have about, I'd say, I got a late start, so I'm giving myself maybe 8 more minutes. One of the things too that I've been studying is this koan, case number 19. Ordinary mind is the way. The case. Joshu earnestly asked Nanshin, "What is the way?" Nanshin answered, "The ordinary mind is the way." Joshu asked, "Should I direct myself towards it or not?" Nanshin said, "If you try to turn towards it, you go against it." Joshu asked, If I do not try to turn towards it, how can I know what is the way?" Nanshin answered, "The way does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is delusion, not knowing is blank consciousness. When you have reached the true way beyond all doubt, you will find it as vast and boundless as the empty firmament. How can it be talked about on a level of right and wrong?" At these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. In Mumon's commentary, it says that it took Joshu 30 years to digest this realization. So I just want to say, just because we have realizations doesn't mean it's it. It takes a while to digest these things. So I just want to say, when Joshu asks this question to Nanshin, "What is the way?" It's a sincere question. I ask it a lot myself. What is this way? What does this mean? And Nanshin says, the ordinary mind is the way. This mind is the way. There's no other way. I'm like, wow, you're kidding me. I've been working all my life to get out of this mind. And you're pointing me back to this mind? That seems crazy. And Joshu says, should I direct myself towards it or not? And I'm reminded of the jewel mirror samadhi. Turning away and touching are both wrong. What to do? Just stay in the painted corner. You'll be fine. Okay. And I think too, it's interesting, this whole ordinary mind is the way is profound to me. And it's like, why haven't I thought of this sooner? I mean, I've been, yeah, what's up with me? But then I'm like, oh, good for you. You've awakened to something. You've awakened that your mind, your ordinary mind, is the way. I'm like, but I'm not enlightened. It's okay. It took Joshu 30 years to digest his awakening. You got lifetime after lifetime. When you have finally reached the true way beyond all doubt, you will find it as vast and boundless as the great empty space. That's exactly what I experienced with my beloved elders passing. The boundlessness and the vastness of the experience. In a teaching that I was given many teachings that were very similar to Buddhism from my beloved elder. And the teaching, one of the teaching was the paramita of generosity. And that this elder, this indigenous elder, was continuously teaching me about giving and giving until it hurts. She embodied this practice of going beyond generosity. I was honored and humbled to participate in this teaching. And what does that mean, giving until it hurts? To pull back on one's egocentricity, to pull back on my egocentricity and my selfing is an austerity. To be able to give freely. And actually it's a death. It's a death of the selfing. To give in the true spirit of generosity of giving. Just like in our meal chant, giver, receiver, gift, all empty. And yet we're all nourished. It's a training. For me, it's a training. Another, in these deathing processes, what I consider deathing processes, deathing in a way that's kind of celebrates living. I want to say that I'm celebrating living, even though I feel like I'm dying. It's awesome. The family asked me to speak. It was a pivotal moment for me. Do I follow my vow or do I follow my karmic habit patterns? And my karmic habit patterns are disappearing or figuring a way out of the porthole. But when I live my vow, I am face to face with the conditions. And I made a decision. I made a decision to be face to face with the conditions and speak of my love for this indigenous relative. And I want to say that there were like a couple of us. A good friend and teacher of mine went with me, which was very, very important. I could not have done it without her and with all beings. When I got up to speak, it felt like the room was full of indigenous friends and relatives. And I was one of the few white people, white Zen priest. That was my Dharma position. And that's how I was speaking from, as a white Zen priest who loved and loves this indigenous elder. And thank Buddha, Jesus, Mary, it went well. And I learned a lot. So this ordinary mind, we grow it so that it's big enough to include everything. The fear, the genocide, the love, the grief of losing a beloved. It is not self-centered and it is not a special state. Just meeting the arising conditions with equanimity. This is how we can, I've heard this from people, teachers, and I've read it with Katagiri Roshi. This is how we bloom. This is how we bloom our life force. But we bloom our life force in connection to the network, to Indra's net. Each of us is a universe connected to other universes, connected to other universes, connected to other universities, to infinity. I am never alone. Though I may feel like it, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say like, oh yeah, I feel alone. But when I remember my connection to all beings, to my friends, to my family, to my community, to the rabbits that visit my patio, to the squirrels that visit me, to the birds that visit me, to other beings who are grieving the loss of people they love, of beings they love, to other beings who are celebrating the birth of a grandchild, of a new baby. I am connected to it all. That is mind blowing. I'm connected to that sunset, that brilliant sunset. I'm connected to the rainbow that I saw. And I'm connected to each of you. That is so awesome. I don't even know you and I love you. And if you don't love me back, it's okay. So, with that, I want to read one last thing in here. It's in The Heart of Dogens, Shobo Genzo. It's a translation by Norman Woodall and Maso Abe. It's Dogen's Fascicle Busho, Buddha Nature. And I think this is just to say that for me, there's no escape. If you find one, let me know. But I think it might be true for you too. I don't know, though. I don't want to assume. But Dogen writes, the way to contemplate temporal conditions is through temporal conditions themselves. It is contemplating temporal conditions of such things as a fly whisk or a staff. They can never be contemplated by illusionary knowledge, non-illusionary knowledge, or knowledge gained in original awakening, initial awakening, non-awakening, or right awakening. So what I hear Dogen saying is the ordinary mind is the way. The arising conditions are the way. There's no other way. So that's what I've been working on. So thank you for your time, and please bring your voices forward so that we can have a conversation.
Thank you, GD. I'll let you call on people, anybody who raises their hand, and see, we got about a little over 15 minutes here.
So I just really want to invite you.
Well, I'll make a comment here. And, you know, your talk brought up a whole bunch of things. You covered a lot of territory there. I've been, you know, some of the studies that we've been doing, and one of the things that has stuck with me is about how much ability we have to befriend the difficult, whether it's a situation or whether it's an individual. Can we befriend that? You know, it doesn't mean we have to like it, but can we treat it in a friendly manner, you know? And I found that most often you can if you set your mind to it. You know, if you let go of that big ego there that says, no, I don't like that. That person is wrong. This situation is screwed up, and blah, 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 blah. You know, we've always got something that we generally don't like about the way things are. It's been a really good practice for me trying to befriend the difficult, and I usually have more success than the opposite, you know. So anyway, thanks for your talk. You know, it's losing somebody that close to you, that is that meaningful to you, is a difficult process, but you know, it has a lot of learning in it. So anyway, thanks, GD.
JD, thank you for your very heartfelt talk today. I can't say the person's name that has died that was very important to you, but I did meet her at the conference you
Yoda.
organized. So when I heard of her passing, I had to confirm with Kyoku, is this the person that was at that conference? It was just very, very surprising to me. She seemed in very good health from what I could tell. So I can really share your loss. It was just so surprising, even for me. So thank you for, I can tell you're in a state of mourning. So anyway, as Carl said, these things hurt, but we move through them. Place. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Onryu?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for your words. And having experienced something similar to what you're describing, it took me really deeply into that space again. So I really appreciate that. However, my question is something else. One of the things that I'm struggling with right now in a relationship with another person, not my husband, but another person who I love deeply, is something that I felt kind of should have been over. Do you ever have this, it's like, here we go again?
Yes.
Sort of it's just repeating and repeating, and it's just never seems to go away. And so I'm just wondering if you could speak about that in relation to what you said today. Am I clear?
Yeah, you're good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you in many ways. Thank you for stepping forward. Yeah, the unraveling of what I consider kind of ancient twisted karma between in between the spaces of people I'm in relationship to, and particularly with friends I am close to, who I feel like we have an understanding of kind of an agreement of ways that we will interact. And what I hear you saying is that sometimes what happens is we think that we're done with something, we're done with some kind of behavior, some kind of action, some kind of feeling, and then it comes up again. Okay, so I hear that and I understand it. And what I am trying to do right now, because what I did in the past is not what I'm doing now. In the past, I would just kind of be like, okay, that's it. I mean, I can't do this, right? So it ends up not repairing the relationship. So, I mean, after a while, that kind of habit energy creates real aloneness, right? So what I'm trying to do is pivot that habit pattern and do what I'm learning is repair work with people. there are some boundaries that I have that if they're crossed, I can't, there's no going back. But those are boundaries of safety issues around my beingness. They're not in relationship to friends who I love and who I value and who I've learned from and become, I feel like a better human being. So what is the repair work that I can do with this friend? Because there are processes, I feel, that I've experienced, karmic processes that have happened where it takes a long time to move through my own karma in relationship to this person's karma, in relationship to the karma that we're creating. So it's a very dynamic process. It's not easy. And when it comes to friends, I'm willing to put the energy into this work because I value them. I value their beingness and presence in my life. And it's not easy. It's really not easy. And what'll happen is it'll happen again. That's one thing I think I'm finding is there's really no arrival point here. It's, can we let go enough of the conditions and work them through enough where we can maintain a friendship? Is the friendship more important? Is repairing the friendship more important than hanging on to the grievance or the hurt? So that's kind of what I'm learning, is I want to stay in the relationship. I don't know if that's helpful or not. Thank you.
This is Eido speaking. Can you hear me?
Oh, sure. And okay, and then Kat.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no worries. But I just want to make sure that
Okay.
everybody has a chance.
I just wanted to go back a little bit to the experience. I was with Onryu up north for this 3-day vigil and funeral, and it was very beautiful and moving and inspiring. I've been concerned about our relationship to death and dying in the process of burials and in our culture, where we delegate the whole preparation to someone else, and then we dress the person up like they're alive or asleep, and then we put them in a very expensive container inside another container so that they can't decompose or something. Anyway, and this was just the opposite of that. And so she was not in a casket. There was somebody with her the whole 3 days that we were there, and she was lying there on a blanket and a buffalo skin, and then a blanket over her, and people could visit her pretty much any time. People were coming and going during the day, and part of what we did up there is we prepared one of the meals, because they were providing food 3 times a day for anyone who would come. It could be one person, it could be 100 people, it didn't matter. The food was there. But anyway, I was particularly struck by the 3rd day. So we had a kind of a wake on the first 2 nights where people could speak about her, and there was drumming and singing, and the 3rd day there was the actual funeral and burial. And what was particularly moving was that the family sort of took care of her physically, wrapped her up, and this required, you know, the family together, like lifting her. I mean, and lifting her and moving this buffalo robe and the blanket around her, wrapping her up, and then they carried her to a vehicle, and the vehicle was taking her to a burial site. And so a group of people actually carried her up a long hill on this platform to the top of the hill where her other family members are. The most beautiful part for me, I think, was that, you know, she wasn't protected from the elements and in a big box. And the family actually touched her. I mean, you know, we tend to, I don't know, we distance ourselves from that person who has died. We don't touch, we wrap them up so that they can't, you know, naturally decay like we're supposed to. And it was, so they were very in touch with her and this whole process. And it was, I just wanted to say that that was very special experience for me, very moving, and also very educational. I appreciate their way of doing things.
Thank you. Kat, you wanted to say something? Please come forward.
Hello. Thank you so
Hi.
much for your bringing your intimate experiences to us and your yet light and inviting manner at the same time. It's amazing to me.
Thank you.
You talked about being, and Mary's problem or her question just started making me think about how many times I've been in that position. I also, you mentioned something about this, but I do have that. I love that karmic havoc energy. That is such a beautiful way of illuminating that concept. But I tend to get out. You know, I get uncomfortable. You know, I'd be willing to expose myself to something for a few times, but after that, I'm like, I need to get out of that painted corner. And, you know, I think when you're in the painted corner, you feel alone. Though, as you point out, we're never alone. We are always in this web of connection, right?
Right.
And all those forces are pressing on us, right? Some of them are uplifting us, some of them are, you know, coinciding with our egos and pulling us down, you know. And but what you said about being the oppressed and the oppressor simultaneously, that is when I can kind of get down to it. And I'm only speaking for myself, but this is where I can, if I allow myself openness, I can really see the truth that I am both the oppressed and the oppressor, and that there is something that I am doing that is perpetuating, just like karmic loop, that, and I think we do that a lot in our suffering, don't we? We're suffering, and in our being closed or absent or angry, we perpetuate our suffering and actually transfer it to another person. And how to get out of that, you know, how to stop you know, for me, you know, enlightenment only comes in moments. And so I feel like I am constantly in this situation of feeling enlightened and falling away, and feeling enlightened and falling away. And maybe that's just what life is. But it always seems to me that it's a very human conflict well, is very, 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 very difficult, especially in this culture, I think, where we're very independent. We're not for the collective. It's very hard to stop repeating that in my life. And I just, do you have words on that? I mean, how do you, and I know you kind of said the same thing to Mary, but the realization of being the oppressor then puts me in a guilt mode. The guilt mode is not effective in lifting up myself and the other person.
Yes, I'd say keep going, keep practicing. And when it comes to the painted corner, yeah, sometimes it's okay to stay there. I mean, I've been in a painted corner this year in many, many ways. And the thing that I've learned about a painted corner, I need to stay there. I need to stay there until I hear an appropriate response that emerges from something deep within me, not from my mind, although my ordinary mind, if it comes from my ordinary mind, I'm good, I'll respond. But if it comes from my egocentricity, no, I've done that, I've tried that, I'll create more karma. I'll just stay in this painted corner and I'm just fine, because I'm going to remember in that painted corner is a universe within a universe within a universe. And you're right. Guilt does nothing. It doesn't do anything. Keep your agency. You're practicing. You have awareness. Keep going. Trust yourself. The wisdom is within you. And that may sound superficial, but it's not bullshit. It's in you. It really is. And that's one of the gifts that Yoda, Darlene Renville, Pipe Boy, I call her Yoda. That's the gift she gave me. It's in me. I just need to quiet myself. It's in us. And we're connected to this beautiful network. And it doesn't matter if we live in a culture that says this is about individuality. We know that's bullshit. It's about the collective, not in the Borg sense, but in Indra's net. So keep going. You're doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Thank you for stepping forward. And thank everybody for stepping forward. This has been a precious experience. So thank you all for your beautiful presence.
Thank you, GD. Very nice.